Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Burnt Pancakes podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with a friend that I met in a mom's group. Her name is Tracy. She is a boy mom, and she is sharing with us this week her journey with infertility. I asked her to come on and share her story because I feel like this is a topic that a lot of women go through alone. And I wanted her to share her story just to give hope and inspiration to moms who are going through this, but also an understanding of what other women are going through if you know someone or don't know someone going through this. So I'm so excited to invite Tracy onto the podcast. Tracy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. What an honor.
I love it. At first she said, I'm so nervous. Why me? I'm like, oh, because you're a mom and you've got a great story to tell.
Oh, thank you.
I love that. Okay, so let's start by telling the listeners how we actually met. So there's a group in our city called the Mom Walk Collective where moms get together and go for walks. And we both showed up. And I'm not sure if you felt the way I did, but I looked around. I had my 3-year-old not sitting in a stroller, running around like crazy. And everyone else had like little babies. They were like babies in their carriers, little babies sitting in their strollers. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so out of place here.
Yep.
I'm so old. Did you feel that way?
And I had my 4-year-old at the time in a stroller. And the only reason he was in the stroller is because I was throwing snacks at him.
Right.
Praying that he would stay in the stroller.
Don't get out. Don't get out. All those babies are being so perfect right now.
Yes.
Right.
I was like, there's nobody else here with this old of a kid. Why am I here?
Yes. Oh, I felt exactly the same way. So I think we locked eyes. We're like, you've got an older kid. I've got an older kid.
And a boy.
And a boy too. Yes. So then when we were chatting, because we, connected, you told me you also have a son in high school.
Yes. Nuts.
So then I was like, whoa, tell me about that. And you started to share about your journey with infertility. Mm-hmm. So I would be so honored if you could tell us about that. Open up this topic that so many moms are going through, but really don't have anyone talking about it.
Yes. I appreciate you allowing me to share my story because it is definitely something a lot of people struggle with, but struggle in silence. Mm-hmm. And I just know the heartache that comes with it. And my journey was 10 years long. So,
oh my goodness.
So we actually, when we had my firstborn, we had no problem getting pregnant. I went off the pill, and 2 months later, I got pregnant.
Boom.
Easy peasy.
I'm so fertile. Oh my gosh.
I was like, wow, that's not hard. So then, a couple years later, when we were talking about wanting to grow our family, didn't think it'd be a problem. So we started to try and nothing. And so at that point, I was in my early 30s, and that's, old for childbearing.
Well, now
years.
They call it geriatric.
Yes. They make you feel like a grandma. Uh-huh. And so my OB was like, well, let's start some of the testing and see where we're at.
At what point, how long did you try before she said?
Probably 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually it's a year.
Each month that went by, was it like a heartbreak?
Yes.
Like
and
for
I had
us,
no
like
idea.
we tried a couple months each time, and each one was like you mourn every month when you start your period. Like, oh my gosh,
it's the worst.
Again.
Yes. Whether you struggle, whether you experience that 1 month or 10 years, it's never easy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So 6 months go by, then that's when we sought the doctor, advice. And so I went through tests. My poor husband had to do a few tests. And nothing was wrong with either one of us. They found nothing wrong. I mean, that's great.
It is great, but you're also like, but why?
Why? Exactly.
I need to, I would love to know, you need to do this, and then that's going to happen. There's no
I just want to fix.
Yes.
I want you to fix me.
Yes.
So that's when we found out, apparently there's a large 10% of infertility cases are the unexplained infertility.
Oh my gosh.
And oftentimes after you've already had one child.
Really?
So I had no idea that was a thing.
No. You just assume I got pregnant once, this shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. So that was a surprise that's more common than I thought. Mm-hmm. And so then after we did all the testing and there was nothing wrong with either one of us, then of course they refer you to the fertility specialist, the very expensive doctor in the fancy office. And so we went to the premier guy in Orange County and started along that path. And we did the first couple steps, taking the medicine to make you ovulate, the IUIs.
IUI is what?
Where they
inject?
Yes.
Like, okay.
Yes.
So that's like the first step,
that's
right?
The first
like
step.
Least invasive.
Yes.
Okay.
So they get it up in there, right? So, and usually you ovulate a couple eggs when you're taking those medicines.
Oh, so do they say the chance of twins goes up? Okay.
So as I was laying there, as the process was happening, I was telling my husband, I was thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to have five babies, because how is this not going to work? I mean, it just seems like science.
It's there. Timing's right.
Yes.
Like there shouldn't.
Yeah. So that was unsuccessful. That was heartbreaking.
Did the hormones affect you? Was that, it was like a shock that you'd have to give. How did that like affect your body?
I mean, just think of PMS times 500. I just felt like a crazy person. Yeah.
Like all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, because they're giving more estrogen?
I'm not exactly sure how it works. Yeah.
Okay.
I just was willing to do whatever, so I took whatever they gave me.
Yeah. Give me a baby. Give me a baby,
please. So we did 2 rounds of that unsuccessfully. And then the doctor was like, so then we move into the next thing would be
the next level up.
IVF.
Okay.
So I remember sitting in the office with the doctor, and my husband is a numbers guy. He's very logistical. He was a math teacher. So this woman was giving us the statistics of, if you do this, you spend all this money, here's your chance of actually getting pregnant.
And it's not very high?
It was so low. And I want to say it was like 10% or something like that.
With that cost?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And my husband just went,
what? No.
Also a numbers guy. He runs our finances, and he went, that's insane.
Yeah.
So I was willing to do anything. So I wanted to do it. And he's so wise. And he's like, I just don't feel like that is the best way for us to spend our money.
Because it's like a mortgage payment, down payment.
It is so expensive. Insurance doesn't cover it. At least back then. I don't know about now. This was a long time ago.
Now. Yeah.
So insurance doesn't cover it. Not to mention the emotional toll. Even just doing the IUIs, it's literally every day you're thinking about it. You're having to, when you're ovulating, you got to go to the doctor that day and have them do the procedure. Like it's nuts. So I can't even imagine what IVF would have been. That would have been even harder.
That's so funny, because there's a TikTok going around right now. I don't know if you've seen this, where they ask, like a wife asks their husband, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? And they're like, maybe like once a day. And everyone's like blown away. But I'm like, when it comes to getting pregnant, how often do you think about getting pregnant? Probably once a minute.
Yes.
Every hour I think about it. Like it is constantly on your mind.
Yes.
So emotionally that takes a huge toll.
Yes. And I'd already seen the emotional toll just those 2 months had taken on me. So he was very wise.
High and low.
Because I don't think emotionally I could have taken it. Now I have a lot of friends who have done it and have had success, and I'm so happy for them. But for us, I think it wasn't the right choice. So I mourned that for a little bit. And, and then people just say things to you because they don't know. If they've never been through it, they say, oh, if you stop actually trying, then you'll get pregnant.
Like,
or thank you for that.
Thank you. Yes.
Or the minute you give away all your baby stuff, you'll get pregnant. Even my mom said things like that because people just don't know. If you've never been through it, you don't know what to say. And so as the years went on, and I'm watching friend after friend get pregnant, the awkwardness of them wanting to tell you but don't know how to tell you.
Going to baby showers.
Baby showers were really hard. I finally had to be honest with myself and not go for a while. When I was in the deepest kind of valley of this trial, that was something I had to just choose not to do, is go to a baby shower. Because there were times I'd be sitting at a baby shower and I'd want to run to the bathroom and cry. Or friends are announcing a pregnancy and I'm in the back corner like, don't cry.
I'm just so happy for you. I am happy for you, but sad for me.
You are genuinely happy for people. It just brings up these emotions.
Like, why not me?
Yes. And the worst was, and I don't fault anybody, because if you've never been through it, you don't know how to act or what people are thinking, but it's this look of pity in people's eyes when they're talking to you. they don't even know they're doing it. And I remember telling my husband once, like, I can't go to that event because the pity eyes from people, I can't take anymore. And so there was probably a year where I sort of retreated into my turtle shell, which I wouldn't recommend. It was a very lonely place. But I just,
what you needed
I
at that
didn't
time.
know how else to.
Did many people know you were going through that? Or was it like, oh, you have one kid. When are you having the next one?
So that's the other question. I think if I hadn't had any kids, it wouldn't have been so obvious. But that was the other question that killed me was, oh, your son's 5 or 6, 7. Like, you don't want any more? Like,
yes, I do.
You don't even know what a loaded question that is, you know? Of course I want more, you know? So just people don't realize how much those words hurt. And so my husband was like, do what you need. Like, it's okay. I'll go and represent our family for these things. And it was just, you know, there was that probably about a year of being at the lowest low. And then I started to kind of come out of that valley and started to feel more content. And with, you know, thank you for the child that I have. Like, I'm so grateful. And I feel like I spent too much time lamenting over my infertility that I sort of missed out on those happy early years of my son's life because I was just so focused on wanting another child.
Yeah. And then you feel guilty about that.
Yes.
Like, I should be grateful for this one.
Yes. So I've just over the time, you know, still, you know, starting your period every month was heartbreaking. If I was a few days late, I started to just not take a test because I knew it was.
Were you fairly regular? So like,
yes.
Okay.
So if I was a few days late,
my period's off. This is,
so
everything's working.
Yes. Yes. So, I started to feel like I was in a good place of contentment. And then, I'll never forget, I went to get blood work done because I discovered I had a thyroid issue.
Oh, same.
Oh, yeah?
I do.
Hashimoto's.
Hashimoto.
Yes.
That's great.
It's very common in
Which
women.
is so, okay, there are 4 women on my street that all have it.
Wow.
It's crazy. But I got diagnosed when I was in like, I think 7th grade.
Oh, interesting.
Super, super young.
Wow.
So it's just been something that all my life I'm like, oh yeah, thyroid. Whatever.
Wow. I've heard after pregnancy, you can often I
had to be really careful. Like my doctor always said, if you get pregnant, come in right away.
Yes.
And then like throughout the pregnancy and then afterwards, we'll just adjust your numbers and stuff. Oh, yes. Interesting. What made the doctors diagnose you?
It was actually my OB. I was at just a regular well woman visit for the year, and she looked at me and she goes, "Your thyroid looks a little swollen." So
the goiter. I had the goiter as a 7th grade girl. I was like, "Wow,
that's nuts!"
Yeah.
Wow. So she's like, "I want you to go get some blood work done," and my TSH was in the 90s, which is nuts. It's supposed to be between 1 and 2.
Yeah. Yes. Were you feeling, now that you know what the symptoms are, did you know?
Yeah.
Because it's like terrible. Super tired, hair falling out, dry skin.
And just the hormones like all over. And so of course then there was this little spark of hope, like maybe this is why. So I was getting my every 6-month blood draws for my thyroid, and I was sitting at Quest, and the sweet woman drawing my blood just started casually talking like, "Oh, do you have any kids?" And yeah, my son, he's, 10 or whatever at this point. And she goes, "Oh, you didn't want any more?" And there was that dreaded, awful question. And I was in a good place. I felt like I was, I didn't
know how
flinch.
to answer this now.
Yeah. And I just answered her, of course I want more kids.
Yeah. What was your go-to answer?
So I always said, yes, I would love more kids, but that wasn't what God's plan was for me. I've been trying for years, and it's just, I'm thankful I have a son.
Perfect.
But I got to my car and I just sobbed. And I was like, I thought I was over this.
Right.
Like, it's just,
like you can heal, but it'll never, like there's still a scar.
Yeah.
Like you still know it's there.
And that woman, she didn't say anything different than people have said to me in the past. It was just that moment I just sat in that parking lot of Quest Diagnostics sobbing. So then, I'll never forget, of course, the year 2017. And it's Thanksgiving break, and my husband is in education, so he was off for the whole week. which is always great.
A perk. That's a really good perk.
Yes. And we were laying sod in the front yard, and my husband's a DIYer, so he was doing it all by himself. So he had been outside. He was in the dirt. It was like muddy. And I had been a few days late. And again, never batted an eyelash at that. I wasn't going to take a pregnancy test. But it kept going. And it was late. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was out that morning. I was like, I'm near a CVS. I'm just going to grab a pregnancy test.
How often in those it was 10 years?
Yes.
How often did you take pregnancy tests? Or did you learn to just, I'm not even
at the beginning, all the time.
Yeah.
And then it was too heartbreaking to see the no.
Yep.
So I just stopped.
Yeah.
I was like, I might be 6 months pregnant and not know. Which that happens to people.
Right, for sure.
But,
so you got a test.
Yeah, so I went and I bought a test, and I didn't even wait. You know how you're supposed to do it in the morning?
Yeah.
I went home. This was the midday, and I went and peed on that stick right away. And I couldn't believe it because instantly big old blue line. And I was like, I've never seen that before. Like, what?
Yes.
And I'm like, that can't be right.
How many more did you take? Do you take three more?
I took it came with two. It came with two. So I was like, okay. No big deal. I'm just going to take the other one tomorrow. Yeah. I'll just wait. So then I was like all day that day, you know? And then I was like, no.
And you hadn't said anything, right?
No, I didn't say anything to my husband. My son had a friend over. It was so there was a play date going on. I took them to the park. Yeah, I was like, just keep your mind off of it. In my mind, I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out. I'm like, that can't be right. It just can't be right. So I didn't even wait till the next day.
You didn't feel any different?
Nope. I wasn't sick. I wasn't nothing. So I waited, and we got back from the park. My son was playing with his friend. I went back in the bathroom, and I took the second one because I just could not wait.
Same day.
Yes, the same day. Like an hour later.
You're like drinking water.
Same thing. Wow. Bright blue blind. Like immediately. You know how you normally it takes a minute? No. Mm-hmm. It was very strong. So then I was like, I took a picture of it because I didn't want to be running around the house with a pregnancy test.
Your son's like, what's that, Mom?
I run outside. My husband's like in a trench, and he's like got his sunglasses and his hat on, and I'm like,
covered in dirt.
Shows him my it's a picture. Yes. It's not even the pregnancy test. What? And he's like, hon, what am I looking at? I don't know. I was like, and he didn't even know I was late. He didn't know I was taking a pregnancy test. He had no context.
Like, we're not trying. It's just, oh my gosh.
And I was like, my period is late. I just took a pregnancy test, and it's positive. And he was like,
huh? Like, tick, 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 tick.
Yeah, it took him, it was a lot to process. Yes. And then he sat down. We have this little brick, hedge in our front yard. And he sits down and he's like, what?
Wow.
And we both just sat there in silence because it's like we were excited, but we also, at this point, I'm 40. And we know what that means,
Geriatric.
Yeah. And, you're so much wiser at that point. You've had a decade of...
You probably have no more baby stuff. Your kid's in...
nothing.
What, 5th grade?
He was he was in 5th grade.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And we also know, miscarriages are very high... probability.
Because you never had a miscarriage.
Never had. That's one thing. I had never had a miscarriage. I know a lot of friends or people who suffer with infertility, they miscarry. And that's my heart breaks for those women.
That's why, for me, I always had to wait, past that 12-week mark. So I'm like, I could not tell people. And then.
Ugh. Yeah. So since I was 40. The next day I called my OB office.
Was she shocked?
And I didn't talk to my doctor, but I talked to them. I was like, I'm 40 and I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do. What's the protocol?
When do I come in?
Last time I did this, I was 29. Okay. Big difference.
Big difference.
And so they scheduled me to come in sooner than normally. I think you wait till 12 weeks. She had me come in, I think, at 6 or 7 weeks. And so, I love my OB. She was with me with both of my pregnancies. Wow. She's like, I love her. But I will say, we talked through it. She goes, I was shocked to see you on my schedule for this type of appointment. Because normally I was like once a year.
Yep.
Hi, it's me again, just doing our thing. And so we talked through it all, and she, and then at the very end of the appointment, she said, you haven't told a lot of people, have you?
Oh,
I hadn't.
Right.
But the fact that
don't
she
put
said
that out there.
just deflated.
Yes. Like it plants that seed of like, don't get your hopes up.
So there I was in my car in the parking lot sobbing again another time. Yeah. And I called my husband just like a wreck. Like,
and these sweet men.
I know.
Oh, they're so wonderful.
They don't even know what they're signing up for when they get married.
Oh my gosh.
So that was in the back of my mind. But at the same time, like I wanted to share with like, so I chose like two of my closest, dearest girlfriends to tell. Mm-hmm. And then my husband told our pastor because they're very good friends and just wanted to cover us in prayer. And so I knew that these few people that knew if it went bad, that it would be okay, that they would be there for us. Fall back on. Yes. Yeah. So, but that was the hardest secret to keep. But also my anxiety level was through the roof because I was waiting every day to miscarry.
Oh my gosh. Like every little twinge pain. It's like, what is that?
Yes.
Why is it doing that? Yeah.
So I knew the chances were so high that this wouldn't be a healthy pregnancy. So I just every day, and I hated that. I wanted to be excited.
And you got this feeling of like, if you're over this age, it's not going to go well. Because I had two geriatric, like 36 and 38. And they kind of make it sound like, well, you can do those extra tests and you can do this. With both of my second pregnancies, when they did the whole ultrasound at the 20-week, they found a cyst on their brain.
Oh, wow.
With both of them. And the first one, I was like, oh my God, what is wrong? Oh my gosh. Had me so nervous. The second one, it was like, okay, the first had that too. Okay. And by the end of the pregnancy, they're like, oh, it's gone. It's something that could shrink as it goes. I'm like, why did you tell me? Because I'm already like worried.
Just worried about it.
You can do this extra test to see if they have these. And I'm like, I don't. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, it was too much.
Yeah. All those extra tests and there were some that they made you do.
Yeah.
And then some that were optional. And I did not choose to do any of the optional. And so when we got to that, I want to say it was like 17 weeks, I was in for a genetic counseling that they made me do because I was old. And
you were experienced, you're a veteran. Yes.
And one of my dearest friends, so my husband being in education, it's hard for him to take days off. So she's like, and she had actually suffered a loss of a pregnancy at 20 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Within the past year of me going through this. So she said, Tracy, I really want to go with you to that appointment. I know, like, I just don't want you to be alone.
Yeah.
You know? And I was like, really? You have kids? Like, I don't want to inconvenience you. She goes, nope, my mom's going to watch my kids and I'm going to go with you. So we went and she was sitting next to me at the desk and they were going through and of course they give you very scary numbers.
Yes.
You know,
here's this pamphlet. Here's this. And you're like, thank you.
Well, then they're like, while you're here, why don't we just go ahead and do your anatomy scan? Because of some of these things we saw in the genetic testing, let's just go do the anatomy scan. And I was like, that's weird. My husband's not here.
I'm not ready for this.
Yeah. So thank the Lord my friend was with me because then I'm in there. All of a sudden we're doing the anatomy scan and they see that he's small and he's not where he should be at that period of the pregnancy. And so but everything else looked perfect.
That's fine.
Like his little, spine. I could see all of his vertebrae and his fingers and toes. And
he just wasn't measuring.
He just wasn't, measuring. I think he was measuring at this point a few weeks behind.
Okay.
And so the doctor said, it could be nothing. It could be something. But because of this.
Now I'm going to go home and Google what that something should be.
I learned not to Google anything.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes.
He's like, but now we're going to want to monitor you more closely. So we're going to have you come in for another anatomy scan in 4 weeks and see where we're at. And hopefully he will have caught up. And so then my husband was able to come to that one. And then he was actually further behind at that point. So he was measuring like 4 weeks behind at this point. They're like, it's actually worse. It's not better.
Oh.
And
don't you want to go back to the 80s when they didn't have ultrasounds?
Yeah.
And you didn't have to worry about all
this. It was nuts.
Oh.
I am thankful because how it all ended up. I'm thankful for modern medicine, but I also hated it because they were monitoring me so closely that there was so much to worry about.
Yeah.
And so, and at that point, he asked if I wanted to terminate.
You're absolutely not.
Oh my gosh. The question came.
What were they thinking was going to happen? Like he wasn't going to make it full term?
I don't know. That's why the question was so out of left field. I think just because if there's ever anything wrong, that they offer that. And I literally just heard the technician show me everything. This is looking great. Everything looks great. Everything. There was nothing that was indicating anything wrong, just the fact that he was not growing at the rate they would like to see. So I was not prepared for that question. And given our history, it was, I don't think I've ever ugly cried. And to the point my husband...
Not in your car, outside.
No, in front of people. My husband was like, babe, like, we got to get this together.
Let's do this at home.
He's never had to say that to me before, but I could not.
I get it.
So out of left field and not what I was expecting. Yeah. So then that doctor leaves and we're in the room and he's like, babe, pull it together. And thankfully my husband was there because he told the doctor before we left, we will not ever make that choice. So please do not ask us again. Like put it in our file. Don't ever say that again to my wife. Got it. Because we know we'll be back here. Mm-hmm. Just that's not even on the table.
Yes.
We will see this through. We've heard it. Yeah, no matter how it goes. So to make a long story short, I was going all the time for monitoring. They were keeping close eye. And then finally I ended up at Hoag on bed rest because they started to see some through the cord, like the blood flow started to, I forget what they called it. So that I spent about, I want to say 10 days living at the hospital.
Was that towards the very end of the pregnancy?
Yeah. But this was at 28 weeks when I got admitted. So I knew that I probably wasn't going to make it full term. I mean, they told me I wasn't going to. And so every day just monitoring. He had these like what they call D cells where his heart rate would drop significantly. And then all of a sudden these doctors would be in there and they were like turning me on my side, giving me oxygen. I mean, crazy. So finally, the doctor made the call that we needed to do an emergency C-section because they saw reverse blood flow through the cord and that's bad.
Not good.
Bad.
How many weeks were you?
He was born at 31 weeks.
31. Wow.
So, my husband barely made it in time because they were not waiting. They were like, we're doing this with or without him. So they started prepping me and he was speeding down the freeway trying to get there because he wasn't there. Goodness. So thankfully he got there in time. He was born at 31 weeks. Teeny tiny. He was 2 pounds. They took him right to the NICU. And we basically watched the 3rd trimester in the NICU. Yeah. So that on its own,
that's where modern medicine, it's incredible what they can do.
I sat there surrounded by all these premature babies going, this is amazing what they can do. And there were other moms there. Yes. Yeah. That was its own journey.
When were you able to hold him?
So I didn't get to even see him because I ended up having to go under general anesthesia. The spinal tap didn't work and I started to feel him coming. It was terrible. I don't even. Yeah. So they just put me out. And so then I was in recovery and he was already in the NICU. So I didn't actually get to see him until 24 hours later.
Wow. Because so you wake up and you're like, where's my baby?
Yeah. And they put me in my room and he was in the NICU. I've never had a pregnancy where the baby was in my room. My other son was born 5 weeks early. And so I finally got to meet him. I was in awful pain because anyone that's had a C-section,
you can't laugh. You can't. My first was a C-section and
wasn't ready for that.
I remember one day my friend, it was like 5 days in, my friend came over and she was making me laugh and I was like, stop, don't make me laugh. This hurts.
Yeah. So he was in his little isolette, I think is what they call it now, not an incubator. And he had a breathing machine, a CPAP, I think.
Okay.
And so I could barely see his face. He was so tiny and he was hooked up to all these things and they just put him on my chest and I was in so much pain and I was so emotional. And just like the first picture of us as a family is like, I'm like,
the reality of it. It's like, sweet moment. Yes. Oh my God.
What just happened? That was a whirlwind.
Oh my gosh.
So it turned out my placenta was done. That's why he wasn't growing. My placenta just wasn't providing enough nutrients for him. So after the fact, when they were able,
it's nice to know.
Yes.
Like that's the, okay.
I guess that is when you're older, that is more of a reality. So that was why.
Wow.
Yeah. So thankfully they were monitoring me and knew quite when to take him out. But yeah, and so we took him home 63 days in the NICU. We took him home.
So were you just going back and forth
every day?
Drop off kid at school, going to the hospital.
It was summer. It was summer. So my older son, he was 11 and he was with us every day. Thankfully, this was pre-COVID because I know during COVID, people that had you couldn't have anybody in the NICU. Yes. So it's very thankful. My older son was able to be with us.
Okay.
And he just had his little video game and, Yeah. But yeah, every single day, back and forth. Because if you take them out of the isolate, you have to commit to at least an hour of skin-on-skin time because they don't want to be moving them too much. Back and forth. So whether
you like,
it was,
I'll take an hour. Sure, sleep so on me.
I know. And so my husband and I
63 days, so like 2 months. Mm-hmm. And then were you terrified when you brought him home?
Terrified.
Like there are no nurses here.
Yes.
There are no whatever, all these things on him. Was he like had enough weight? What made them decide he was able to go home?
So he's like, feeding. So feeding's a big one. He had to be able to take a bottle. Okay. Nursing wasn't happening, unfortunately. So
that's like the least of your worries at that point.
But I pumped like
no way.
Like a fiend for 9 months because I wanted him to get my milk.
Wow.
I was committed. It was terrible, but I did it.
God, yeah. That's another thing. People do not know how hard that is.
No.
That is hard.
I had to set my alarm, get up in the middle of the night to be every 3 hours.
Even though he was still getting up. Oh
yes.
my gosh.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Wow. So he came home.
Yes. He came home. It was scary because he was still really tiny.
So how much did he weigh when he came home?
I want to say he was like 5 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Little guy.
Yeah. So tiny.
Smaller than all my babies. My smallest was 6'11".
Wow. And that probably seemed teeny tiny.
Tiny.
Yeah.
Well, he left the hospital at like 5 something. They lose weight. But I'm like, I cannot even imagine.
He was little bitty. Oh. Yeah. So, and just so thankful. He's 5 now and
totally healthy little boy.
So they identified a couple delays, around 18 months. And then he had a speech delay. He wasn't talking when he was 2. Mm-hmm. But then one day, it was crazy. One day, you want to know what his first word was?
Mommy, I love you so much.
That's what people would say.
You're a miracle to me.
He's going to just say a sentence. We were reading this book that I had read many times and it had food in it. And he pointed at it and he goes, hamburger.
Oh my gosh.
Hamburger was his first word. And he loves hamburgers to this day.
Mommy, I cherish you. That is hilarious.
Hamburger. But yeah, he's doing great. Like he is just the sweetest miracle baby.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I wonder, this is what I was wondering. Parents who have tried so much and invested so much in having these babies. Like when I lose my mind with my kids, I always wonder, like, do those parents go, oh, but we tried so hard for you.
I lose my mind with
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we all have that. Okay.
Yes. For sure.
It doesn't go away.
For sure.
We're still human, right?
We're still human. Absolutely. And they're still children.
They know how to push our buttons.
Yes, they do. But and what's really cool, I would have never planned my kids to be 12. They're 12 years apart. Mm-hmm. And never in a million years. And in fact, my older son, when we told him, we waited a long time to tell him because we wanted to make sure this was going to happen. He was upset. He got up from the couch, went up to his room, shut the door, and cried on his bed.
Because he's been the child.
Oh yeah,
for so long.
He was an only child. He was old enough to understand that the world wasn't going to revolve around him anymore. And which is interesting.
Big change.
Yes.
That's a big change.
And then in the months after, he had so many questions. And being a boy mom, you'd appreciate this. He said one day, Mom, in Star Wars, how Padme dies when she has her babies? Is that going to happen to you?
Whoa.
I was driving. Not. I was like,
what now? Why are you now? Oh,
yeah.
Well, I remember you told me when we met at that walk, I said, oh, have you thought about, or has your son thought about where he wants to go to college? Mm-hmm. And you said he probably doesn't want to go far away because he mentioned he doesn't want to miss seeing his brother grow up. And I was like, oh my God.
I said that
so that age gap does not mean they're not close.
No. And so that's what's really been a cool blessing out of all of this. I would have never planned for this to be my story or my journey, but I've seen so many blessings out of it. And one of those blessings has been the way my older son has changed. It has, being an only child, as much as you try not to, the world just revolves around them. As grandparents are all, and
you get my full attention.
Yes.
Because there's no one else.
I'm a helicopter because I don't have anyone else to attend
For me,
to.
It's like I've got like my brain going to 3 different places.
Yes.
It's like, oh, sorry, I didn't get to read to you tonight. Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Sorry. Third kid. It's fine.
Sorry. Like my oldest had 30 minutes of story time and then this one. I'm like, did we read that library book? No, it's due. We better return it.
It's fine. You're fine, right? Dust it off. You're good.
Yeah, you're fine.
But so just seeing him change and him even gaining compassion and just to watch him play with, he'd never been around babies. He was a boy, he doesn't babysit or anything. I was just looking at videos recently of how he would do whatever it took to make him laugh, his little brother laugh or giggle. He would do silly things when my little guy would be like crawling or just starting to walk, like, he would do whatever it took to get him to walk to him. And it was just so sweet to see how it changed my older son.
That is so
sweet. And so it really changed our entire family, our entire dynamic for the better. So
like now when you look back at the story of you, it's like this was meant to be.
Yes.
Like I tried to control it, but I was not in control of this perfect story.
And what an amazing gift to have, to look back and to see all of that pain that I went through was for a purpose and it was for a reason. And so I'm 100%, happy to talk about this because anyone that's struggling, I just want them to know, like, you're going through a hard time for a reason. Like, you might not see it immediately. You might see it 10 or 20 years down the road, but you can look back and see there was a purpose in that.
This is why this happened. Yeah. Oh, well, I appreciate so much you sharing that story. Yeah. I think so many women will be touched by it.
Yes.
So thank you so much for sharing that. Well, I want to thank Tracy so much for sharing her story with us. I know it was so eye-opening just knowing how much women go through, sometimes without us knowing. So thank you, Tracy, for sharing the story. But you're in luck because she is not going away. On next week's Momversation, I'm having her come back on to give us some tips on some present day things that she's going through raising teenagers. So she's going to share all of her tips on how to get your teens to communicate. So make sure to stay tuned, subscribe, leave me a review so that you don't miss next week's episode.